I'm coming out now. Thank you. Hi. So I think this is a great time slot because you're eating, we're gonna be talking about food. I like to do that. I feel like when people don't wanna eat and plan their next meal, I don't really understand what that's about. Thank you for coming. I'm super excited to be here. I'm Michelle Wong, president at Dailey, and I'm gonna talk to you about some life lessons I learned from working as a chef. I had no idea how much of that would fit into my life in advertising, but lots of surprises along the way. I actually started as a child actress before I moved into as a chef, and before I started a career in advertising. So I want to take you through a little bit of that. We're also going to cook, so this is going to be really interesting. Oh, I have a question. My clicker is up here. Thank you. These guys are so amazing. They helped me prep all of this. They're fantastic. So I am thrilled to be back in Chicago. This is actually where I started my career. Last night there was an opening reception party at Leo Burnett, and that was my first job. And so it was kind of crazy taking those elevators back up to the 21st floor and sort of reliving that life again. But Chicago is basically a second home to me. And the reason why I got into advertising is because I was tired of working in a kitchen. I was working crazy long hours, like 14-hour days. I was working with insane people and ego-driven chefs, and there was so much drama. And I thought, you know what? It's time to do something more normal. Let's get into advertising. So clearly, I had no idea what I was doing. So when I made that transition, it actually was a lot easier for me than I expected. I was like, okay, I know this. I know that person. I know this process. This feels really familiar. So hopefully, by sharing some of that, you'll sort of see how that could work for you too. Let's see. Okay, so I want to give you a little bit more background on me because it's kind of funny. And I can't talk about myself without talking about where I think everything started in our family, and that was with my grandmother, Nancy Yee. So Nancy immigrated to the US when she was 18. She was already an established actress in Hong Kong, contracted with Shaw Brothers Studio. She was pretty big time. But when she moved to the US, she fell in love and got married and had 4 kids. But she never let go of this dream. And her dream was to live in LA, and her dream was to make it in Hollywood. So at 50 years old, she decided to pick up her passion of acting again. And she worked constantly. She was hilarious, and this is her last project was on Dumb and Dumber 2, if you saw that hilarious movie. But she played Harry's mom, and there she is sharing a scene with Jim Carrey. And she got to the point in her career where, you know, people were calling her and she wasn't even auditioning anymore. I mean, what a light. And I think by her sort of setting this tone in our family, it really made a shift for all of us, but particularly the women in our family. You know, I had a really different upbringing. I wasn't living in a household with a tiger mom. I had a stage mom, but I also wasn't pushed to sort of become a doctor or a lawyer or to study engineering. I was told to pursue what made me happy, to fulfill those dreams, find that creative passion, and contribute to the world in a way that only you know how to do. Well, that's like a really tall order coming from a woman like this who is so spectacular. So what were my dreams? Like all of us, I think our dreams kind of change over the years. So I would say my first one wasn't necessarily my own. I think when I started as an actor, it was very much my grandma was like, great, get this kid an agent. So here's me in my first headshot. And I worked a lot. I worked up until I went to university. And the reason actually why I left being an actor was because of the challenges that I faced in that world. I think it was a different time. Even now, I think the opportunities for minorities are pretty limited. But sort of growing up in this industry and being told that you had to speak with an accent at an audition, or that the only roles available to you were as a child war victim or an adopted kid in a family, it's not a lot of opportunity. And I felt like I couldn't give myself and be what I thought I could be in this industry. So I had moved on. This one is really just stupid and for fun, because like, who doesn't want to see a photo of someone in their, here it is, dance recital costume. So I also was very serious about becoming a dancer. My aunt is a beautiful dancer, having danced with Alvin Ailey. She was the first Asian Laker girl, first Asian Rams cheerleader. I come from a family of trailblazers, and I was trying to find my way, and what was I going to do? I mean, I could kind of work that pose. It's just, you just need the knee pads. That's what's missing. So as I grew older, as I grew up, I started finding what felt good to me and what felt right. And that was in cooking. And I found that I was able to express myself and try new things and experiment. And actually, it was the joy of making something and sharing it with someone else and getting that feedback. They liked it. They wanted more. They wanted to know the recipe. They wanted to talk about it. And it was that relationship around food and that community that I was building that I could not get enough of. So I decided to go to culinary school. And where better to go, I think, at the time than at Le Cordon Bleu. I studied in London. Here's me on graduation day. How happy is this person? I was thrilled. I studied both cuisine and patisserie. I earned my grand diploma in both. And this was sort of a real important time in my life. I had no idea the lessons that I would learn here. I had no idea the amount of patience and perseverance that was required of me to do this kind of work and how I would carry that on the rest of my life. So, it's a little bit about me. Let's get to the good stuff. Today, we are going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to click through a presentation, hopefully, talk about advertising, talk about food, and we're gonna make this gorgeous coconut and blood orange cheesecake right here and right now. So, perfect timing. We're coming up to Thanksgiving. This is it's so easy to make, perfect to take to family dinners, whatever. It's creamy and luscious, and it's so, so good. So I think you'll like this. But a side note, my cheesecake is vegan. So something new that we'll be learning. Yay, vegan, dairy-free. I'm on this journey towards a vegan lifestyle, and actually, what's been so exciting is how it's reinvigorated my passion for food. It's really forced me to take this foundation that I have in cooking and reapply that to plant-based cuisine, and it's hard. I mean, sometimes there really isn't a substitute for butter, but you make it work. So this is gonna be great, hopefully, and we will start here. I had a lovely team help me get all this going, so we're gonna do a lot of like back and forth. We'll be talking about what we're doing here, we'll be making things, we'll be talking about advertising, so stick with me. Okay, what's next? Okay, lesson number 1, mise en place. Mise en place actually in French means everything in its place. I love this part of the process. This is one of my favorite things to do. I'm an account person, so I think I just like organization and I like things in its place and I like to be prepared and plan things out. So just before you all came in here, we were up here, Nick was helping me crush some graham crackers, and I was like, okay, all this has to be lit because I can't start unless things are ready to go. Actually, this is like one of my favorite things that I got from working in a professional kitchen is even when you're cooking at home, it doesn't matter what you're making when you're cooking dinner. The first thing you do is turn on the oven and boil a pot of water because you're gonna need them eventually. There's nothing worse than feeling like you need that and it's not ready to go. So that's one of my favorite tips. All right, so this is what we have for mise en place. What this means is not only have you checked that you have all your ingredients, but everything is open. There's nothing worse than fighting through packaging to get things out. Everything is measured. You have a plan of attack. You have your recipe. You have your temperatures, your timings, and you're ready to go. Anyone watch Great British Bake Off? It's like so good, right? I'm obsessed when they're going through their checklists because that's critical. It's so part of the plan. It's how you know you're gonna get to the end and you're gonna be able to execute. When I got into advertising, I realized that this is a really big part of things too. I was kicking off an assignment early on in my career at Leo Burnett, and there were a lot of questions. And I realized that I hadn't done my mise en place. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to answer things. I hadn't done my homework. It's something that I apply to everything if I'm just having a meeting with anyone. I want to come in feeling prepared. Having that preparedness really seems like, feels like a coat of armor for me, and I know that I can get to the end because I'm ready to take it on. Okay, so we'll go through the ingredients as we go through each step. So we'll go to the next step. First, I'm gonna put this down. First, we're going to make the crust. So a cheesecake, I love a classic graham cracker crust. It's the way to go, great texture. But because this has a slight tropical angle to it, I'm adding some shredded coconut. So what that does just gives a little bit of texture and again, a hint to that, that coconut flavor. So I'm just gonna do this here in the pan. Lovely, thank you, Nick, for helping me do this. This is beautiful graham crackers. So we're just gonna put this in here. We will put our shredded coconut in, yum, and mix this all together. So here's something that's been tricky, binding and baking, and how do you make things taste good and stay together when you don't have butter. So I was going to use macadamia nut oil, but I think that's really hard to find. So today I have walnut oil. I would recommend macadamia nut oil purely for the flavor. It tastes like liquid butter. It is so good. The other thing that I really like using is coconut oil, because it'll hold. So after you bake it and you chill it, it'll keep the texture, but it just doesn't have the richness of the macadamia. So you can play around and use what you feel good about. So let's add this in. So I like to use 5 tablespoons. This is very exciting. I can't believe I'm at 3% cooking a cheesecake in front of you. Is that 5? This is 5. I lost count. Was it 4? It's 4, thank you. This is the other thing. I was like, I feel like I should have a sous chef up here, but next time, we'll figure it out. Okay, so there's that. So this is just gonna get mixed in and get it all yummy and consistent together. Baking this is super easy. 350, 10 minutes. It gets golden, it's perfect, and you just leave it out and let it cool so that you can fill it with your yummy filling. Okay, so we're gonna pretend that this is perfect and that we're putting it in the oven for 10 minutes. But I mean, it smells amazing already. It's the coconut. Ugh, I love coconut. Okay, so moving into, I was like, where's my thing? Number 2. So this is, when I read this, I was like, oh yeah, this was my pre-vegan days. So liver mousse. Liver mousse is a story about me working my first job as a chef. So when I graduated, I was interviewing for jobs, and I got hired. I got hired at the Grosvenor House Hotel in London. This is like a super posh place on Park Lane in Mayfair. It's like super fancy. I was like, I'm gonna be able to do all of my French skills and sugar work and chocolate and all these wonderful things. And I get there, and my first job is to fill mini tartlets with liver mousse. And I was presented, chef gave me, I still smell it. It was this vat this big, filled with liver mousse. And my job was to take trays and trays of them in a rack and pipe every single one. I was like, I don't know who's eating these, why we have to make so many, but that's what I did. And every rack that I finished, chef came by and said, and looked at all of them and inspected them. Were they level? Were they clean? Did I break off any of the pastries? Was there crumbs anywhere? If there was anything that wasn't perfect, they got picked up and thrown in the trash, and I got to do it all over again. And that was a hard thing to do. I felt like I was ready to do so much more, but I realized that I was being taught how to master something. I was piping, I was doing all these things, getting the perfection, getting all these things nailed so that I could graduate to the next step and take on something more. Being able to really master the small things allows you to take on the bigger things, so you don't have to keep checking to see if it's right. You know how to do it, it's second nature, boom, it's happening. So, I have to say, when I started working in advertising, I feel like I had a very liver mousse kind of job. My role as an entry account person was I paper clipping the papers together right? Were all the chairs level when I walked into a room? I was doing every single budget. And because I had been through this experience, I was like, okay, I get it. This is what you do. This is how you build yourself up. And I think one of the best parts now when looking back as a leader, I think having been through those experiences, you know what it takes to get the job done. When I ask someone to do something, I know what it's like because I had to do it myself, and I think it creates a lot of empathy as a leader. I know when I walk into a room and it's done, or people presenting to me in a room, the amount of work that went into getting to that stage brings a lot of, I guess, a lot of appreciation. So I think everyone's had a liver moose moment in their careers. All right, so next up, we are going to make the filling. So let's pretend that this has been baking in the oven and it's sitting to chill. And now we're gonna make the cheesecake part. So one of the reasons why I made this for this particular presentation is because it's so simple, it's really easy. It's like dump everything in a bowl and stir it up. I practiced with lots of different types of tofu and different texture and found that silken tofu is the best because you get it super creamy and it's not lumpy and it's delicious. So we're just going to put that in here. Yum. I love Kite Hill vegan cream cheese, or you can use Tofutti, whatever. There's only a couple brands out there, that's what I'm telling you, because you don't have a lot of choices. But these are really great to use. I'm gonna put that in there. Now, every cheesecake needs a little bit of citrus. Typically, it's lemon, but because blood orange is in season and it's such a beautiful color and you get the tart and the sweet, I thought this was a perfect mix to switch things up a little bit. The other good thing is it doesn't change the color of the cheesecake. You kind of still get that creamy look and it doesn't turn pink or anything. So I would normally measure this out, but we're gonna do things. I should have worn an apron. I was like, should I wear an apron? No, here we are. Just gonna get really messy today. So we'll get some of the blood orange juice in here. Okay, a couple more things and then we'll get into another fun story. Something about vegan stuff is like, it's hard to get a good solid consistency. We still want the wobble, you want the gooiness, but you need it to hold. So I use a little bit of cornstarch. So here's some sugar. I don't like a lot of sugar, so this is about 3/4 of a cup. We're going to do a 1/4 cup of cornstarch and some vanilla, because vanilla is always nice. There we go. Oh, what was I saying about my freaking mise en place? My stuff isn't open. This is me. This is the stuff that makes me crazy. Okay. We'll add this in here, a teaspoon of that. What else? Ooh, so coconut cream. This is great. Use this. This is the only spatula I have. Use this after you've refrigerated it overnight. And I think maybe about the top 25% of the can is the cream. So it solidifies, it gets to the top, and it gets super yummy and gooey like this. And what this does actually, because I'm like, you don't want to add more liquid to vegan things because it just doesn't hold. But what it does is adds just that high note of coconut at the end. This isn't super coconutty. It just gives you that lovely sort of taste at the very end, at the finish. You're like, oh yeah, this is kind of tropical. So great. So we'll get a little bit more in there. Yum. Okay. Sorry, I can't help myself. So when I went to school, so when I was at Le Cordon Bleu, the first semester, I was really surprised. We weren't allowed to use any equipment. So no mixers, no thermometers, everything had to be done by hand. And that was really hard, but I did get some biceps out of it. And what I realized was this whole process was about making sure that you can get things by feel, seeing that process of what it takes to transform an egg white or a sabayon to the very end. You can see the consistency, you can feel the difference, you can smell it, you can hear it, you can see it. Really relying on all of your senses. Same thing with checking if meat is done, for instance. Everyone does this trick. Well, it's true, you have to test it. You don't want to poke things and have them bleed all over. So that was a lot of hard work, and I realized that that was an important lesson, because if you can see things through and you know how they feel and how to get to the end result, having done it by hand, then you don't have to check things anymore. I can look at cream, I can look at egg whites and know when they're done. I'm not constantly pulsing it, I'm not flipping my bowl over. I know it because I can feel it and I've seen it and I've done it a million times. I think in advertising, it's very similar coming from the sense of you have all these experiences. We've done projects or shoots over and over again. They're different every time, but it's relying on those experiences and that muscle memory to really, for me, it's helped me build that confidence to take on the next thing. So let's just mix. I don't think this is very loud. I went on Amazon and I bought a cordless USB rechargeable mixer, because they were like, there's no electrics up here. So we'll see how this, oh, this is great. This is great. So yes, it's, for me, experience has always fed into intuition. So much of what we do is, there's gut involved with everything, but gut doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from the things that you've seen and done in your life. So for me, it's always been about trusting that and feeling okay with that and making those decisions, because you've done it, you know what you're doing, so just go for it. Okay, this is looking pretty good. Oh, it's so creamy. Okay. Oh, you know what? You know what I need to do? We'll just do a little bit right now because I forgot to do it earlier, is let's just get some zest, because the zest is the good part. It smells amazing, and you get all these beautiful colors in here. Okay, gorgeous. Okay, what's next? See, 2 things, a spatula and a clicker. I've never done this before. All right, so let's fill our cheesecake. Oh, this is yummy. I made like 4 of these leading up to this. I've eaten a lot of cheesecake since today. Here we go. The blood orange is so good. It's in season right now. Use it as much as you can. All right, so we'll just smooth this over. And when you're home, this is really easy. You don't need to put it in a bain-marie or a water bath. You just need to pop it in the oven, keep it at 350 for an hour, take it out, let it rest for 30, 40 minutes, and then let it sit in your fridge overnight, and you'll wake up to a beautiful cheesecake. Okay, so this is, I don't know if anybody can see anything. It looks and smells yummy. So we'll put that there. Okay, make it work. This is what's happening right now. We're just making things work as we go along. For me, this has always been about the creative process. Whether it's being flexible, being willing to change. It took me a long time in my career to understand that starting over isn't bad. Starting over doesn't mean you've stopped. Actually, starting over means that you've found another way. And I think that happens so much in our business and the creative and the work that we do. So sometimes in the kitchen, when I was done making croutons or piping pastry shells and doing things, we had some downtime. And chef would ask all of us to play and experiment and come up with ideas, show new plating techniques, and present them out and see if we want to use any of it. And it was very exciting until chef hates it. And you feel bad and you put your heart and soul into this and you're like, is this subjective or is this just technically wrong? Like, I really like this, and you have to kind of figure that out. And that, I think, to me, was the closest parallel that I had going into advertising. There are a million different reasons why something would have to change, and the spirit of making it work for me has always been finding that balance between being true to yourself and being authentic to what you want to do and believe in, but also acknowledging that you have an audience. And making sort of those 2 things harmonious is really the piece that that kind of brings that make it work spirit come to life. I've always felt that it's okay to let go of things and start over. It's okay to change and evolve. And it took me a while to get there, but I think if you have enough things get killed and you start over, you kind of get used to it. So, okay, so this is our make it work moment right here. We don't have a fridge and we don't have an oven. So here's our cheesecake. Imagine all these wonderful things happened. And voila, we have a different cheesecake. So this is the one we're going to use. It's so cute and little. You should have seen the other one. The other one was like a bite-sized cheesecake. So this is going to be fun to decorate. So, and we'll also pretend this is vegan. It's fine. It's all delicious. So this is our stunt cheesecake. Now, I don't have all of my things that I would, actually, you know what? I'm going to do some other things. I think in my photo earlier, I was playing with some edible flowers, some different nuts. I think when I'm decorating or planning, obviously you want to cue to what's in the piece itself, but still have some creative license to mix up some colors and textures. I love to see different heights. This is the fun part. Actually, as I was putting this presentation together, I realized that my favorite part of cooking and advertising is the beginning and the end. And it's the middle part, the liver boost part, the making it work part, that's the hard part. But in the end, hopefully you get something that you like. So let's see here. This is not going to, you can't see what I'm doing here, right? Good, because it's not pretty. I'm just like butchering this poor blood orange. Okay, so let me just click on to the next thing while I do this. Share the recipe. Okay, there was a time that I think everyone here can remember when taking photos of your food in a restaurant was considered super tacky and it was very embarrassing and nobody did it. Social media came along and there were a lot of chefs and a lot of restaurants that were not happy about this. I read so many comments and articles, and it was this feeling of sharing your IP. You know, there were chefs that this is my plating style, and the only way you can see it typically is if you come to my wonderful restaurant in New York, and suddenly it's everywhere, and seemingly anyone from around the world can copy it and make it their own and do the same thing. But I think what happened, obviously what happened, and what everyone started to see, was that all it did was open up the world, and all it did was create inspiration and bring more people to you and together. And there was a huge shift. You know, when I watch Roy Choi on Netflix, and he's showing me how to make this cauliflower fried rice, that doesn't mean that I'm gonna cook like Roy Choi, but it makes me love him that much more that I got a piece of him, and I get to see his process, and I get to try it my own way. So that's what I thought was a really interesting observation with food. Okay, so what I'm doing right now, which is why I've been butchering in this bowl, is I'm trying to segment these oranges because I don't have anything like plump and juicy to put on this cheesecake. So this is what we're gonna do now. I like to use raspberries. They have a great pop of color. My team at the office told me, because they've been doing so many food shoots, they were like, put them in the freezer the night before, individually, not clumped together like I did. Put them in the freezer, and then when you take them out to present, they've got this nice little frost, and they're a little bit fuller, and they look great. So we're just gonna start doing this here. So I think that this is another pretty strong parallel to advertising. I think in our business, there is, and there has been, and maybe, yeah, there still is, there's a reluctance to share, and there's a reluctance to share the credit. If you've had a win, if it was, you know, you sold in creative work, or you won an award, or you got promoted, how did you do that? How did you get there? What were the things that were hard for you? What did you have to change? How did you have to make it work? What are all those things? And I think that in both scenarios, there's a fear that by letting out your secret recipe or your unique story or piece of how you did this, you're losing a part of yourself. And I really believe that actually giving that out opens things up so much more. There's so many gifts in that process. Okay, I'm fiddling with this way too long. Let's see if I can get one more out of here. And I think the reason for why it's not really a problem is because no one's going to do it the way that you've done it. And I'm never gonna cook like Roy Choi. I'm gonna cook it the way that I cook. And I think what's exciting to see as a leader when you've sort of shared that out, to see what people do with it, because they're all gonna do it differently. They're gonna bring their own self to the game. And you get to know that you might have helped someone in that. Okay, so I butchered those segments. Believe me, I know how to segment oranges. This is just not happening right now. Okay, the other thing that I've done is I like to candy things. So I candied some of these at home and I brought them with me. So these are just blood orange segments. And they're easier to cut with scissors. You just boil these in a lot of sugar water for like 45 minutes. You can let them air dry, which is really nice. If you're in LA, you can let them dry like I did in the California sunshine, or you can bake them in the oven. And what this does, it just gives a lot of yummy texture. Okay, let's do a couple more. One of my favorite restaurants, it was ages and ages ago, I was taking photos of my food, and my fellow French patrons were so aghast by what I was doing. And I'm like, now it's normal. Now literally I feel like the wait staff wait for you to take a photo. If they're doing something planning at the table, they're like, oh, you're gonna film this, you're putting it on Instagram, let's do it. So it's great. I'm like, sharing is good. Okay, well, let's leave that one there. So I like a little bit of mint. I wish I had my flowers, but that's okay. Pieces are great. So I like to take a lot of time with this. We don't necessarily have to do that today, but I like to build. You make layers and you cluster and you kind of find things that you like. I also had macadamia nuts going, which is nice. It kind of complements that creamy texture. A little tuck. I also, it's like, I don't know how many other people like to do this, but I like to get my chopsticks and place things. I can have a lot of fun, but we won't go there today. They told me I only had so much time up here. Okay. I wish that I could give you more on my plating, but I'm out of ingredients. But let me just show you what I want it to look like. Oh no. Oh, how do I go back? How do I go back? Does that happen? Oh, okay, perfect. Someone did it for me. Thank you. So this is what we want it to look like. I love the negative space thing that's happening right now. And you'll see when you actually bake this, you'll get the lovely color on the sides. I also like to smooth a little bit of the coconut cream on top, so you just get another little hint of texture and a color shift. So yeah, so those are my lessons. I hope that you have found your chef moment. I hope you got over your liver mousse moment, and I hope that you feel good about sharing your gifts, because for me, I think today, in the position that I'm in now, nothing has felt better than bringing my authentic self to the table, and sharing what I know and what I love to do, and seeing how that gets reinterpreted by the people that I work with. So thank you for sticking with me, and I hope you make this. I'm gonna post the recipe online. Make it at Thanksgiving, it's great. And then you can surprise everyone when you tell them it's vegan, it's so good. And yes, come find me. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to my story today.